Good Wednesday afternoon, everyone. I'm meteorologist Jacob Wycoff, joined by our executive weather producer, Terry Eliasen. Terry, it's been a broken record forecast in a lot of ways for us in the sense that we've just had consistent cold and consistent wind.
Yeah, it's getting old. Somebody was texting me this morning. They're like, has it been cold and windy for like 2 weeks now? And it's maybe not quite that long, but it's been harsh going outside for quite some time. And we're really, thanks to the last couple of winters, really not used to this kind of cold.
Absolutely.
And it's really not even air temperature-wise. It's really not that cold.
It's not crazy cold. It's only 5-10 degrees below average. But when you add the wind
and the persistence of it gets really nasty. But I think most folks are probably tuning in not to talk about cold, but wondering what is the deal with that weekend storm. And we'll get there. First, we'll kind of cover a little bit of what's going on in the next 24 to 48 hours, and that's more cold.
More cold, more wind. The good news is as we approach the weekend, perhaps a little bit less wind and perhaps a little bit milder. We're kind of like, you know, being a little bit picky in things. I mean, it's not like we're going to get 50 degrees or anything. We still have the wind advisory up. This was extended by the National Weather Service through early morning hours Thursday. There are some hints that we could even see this extended further. But Worcester County, Northwest Middlesex County, those higher elevations have already seen some really good gusts. But those gusts don't just they're not just for some of the higher elevations out in central Massachusetts. This is the wind forecast for Boston.
Yeah, so it kind of, as you can see, not a lot of difference here. We're basically, so it's not going to be quite as gusty. It's not quite as gusty today as it was yesterday, although it's close. Tomorrow we'll see slight improvement, and then Friday, slight improvement from there. So it's really just a very slow decline with these winds. You know, Friday gusts to 25, a lot better than today, which we've seen a lot of gusts to 45. So, but it'll definitely, we're not going to see any really calm days for a while, perhaps until this weekend, actually, when the storm is passing by to our south. But and the same with the wind chill tracker. We're basically kind of stuck in the near zero. So this is actually for Fitchburg area. Really stuck near zero or low single digits for the next, say, 24 to 48 hours before there's some improvement.
Absolutely. And Terry, I don't know if we have it in this rundown, but the wind gusts today, I've seen some wind gusts 40 to 50 miles per hour. I think Milton had a 48, 50 mile an hour wind gust, Blue Hill Observatory. So we have seen some strong winds. To Terry's point, we're going to start to see them gradually weaken. And that's going to be a big factor in what you see right there. The feels like temperature, when you see milder temperatures, it's not just the wind chill, but it's also the wind kind of dying down a little bit. So tomorrow, or tonight rather, below zero in Worcester, near zero, Fitchburg and Boston, single digits. And tomorrow morning, kids are definitely bundling up. It's still single digits to teens as you go into tomorrow afternoon. Yeah,
and then we don't have Friday on here, but a little bit of better news come Friday in the weekend. But I threw this in here. The pattern ahead is really more of the same. So as you can see, there's been this ridge over the western part of the U.S., part of the reason for those California wildfires. But we've been stuck in the Northeast under this. Basically, it's a constant sort of evolving or redeveloping area of low pressure up near Nova Scotia and over northeastern parts of Canada. And it just keeps sitting, spinning, and then as you can see, redeveloping again. And then you can almost see another spoke coming down here into next week. So long and short of it is, you know, there's really no major pattern change for us in the near future.
Yeah, the big thing that we'll be watching for is that storm track. With the persistent cold, do we have a system that can tap into that cold? That was the problem the last couple of years, where we would get storms that would go over us. It would just be too mild for those storms. Yeah, it would bring the warm air. Can we get a storm now to tap into some of the cold that we have in place? So over the next 10 days, we do expect those temperatures to be in the 20s the next 2 days, and then we're back into the 30s. But into next week, I think you're still going to notice some wind and some cold kind of settling in.
Yeah, we showed that lobe coming down potentially in the middle of next week, so there could be yet another shot of cold. And there's, as you can see, our average high is 37, so it's not that atypical what we're seeing here. We're not used to this kind of prolonged wintry feel, like I said, considering the last couple winters. But turning to the snow. So average to date right now in Boston, we should have 12.8 inches. That's the average through January 8th. We've got 5.7.
Yep.
So the question is, can we draw some correlation? Does this mean we're in for another very low snowy year? And if you take just the last couple of years, last year at this time we had 4 inches on the ground. The year before that we only had 1.2 inches, and of course we didn't end up with much.
Yeah.
So again, just going by that theory, very little snow through early to mid-January. Of course, your chances get less and less as time goes on.
Right, just less winter time.
Right, exactly.
But if I could just throw that caveat into it, we didn't have any snow until the middle to late January in 2014, 2015.
Yep.
And so that was the record year, right?
Wow,
so
you really went there.
Yeah, I went there, yeah. I'm not saying that this is going to be the case for this winter, but I think if I could draw one comparison, one thing that had is we did have persistent cold leading up to the blizzard blitz, if you will. And so maybe the persistent cold is going to allow us to get some better chances over the next couple of weeks. Again, not drawing comparisons. When this winter is all said and done, I don't think we're going to have 110 inches of snow. I do not think that.
I think we could probably go ahead and say we can lock that.
That's locked in. Okay, fair enough.
Not much going on. Again, that you can sort of see the overall counterclockwise spin. That low is way up there north of Quebec, and it's just kind of keeping us again cold and windy and storm free. And it's hard to even tell on satellite and radar, but there are two pieces of energy associated with this storm that we've been tracking all week. The main part is down in the southwest near New Mexico and Arizona, and that northern fringe is really the important piece up near Montana that's diving down from Canada. All week long, we've been sort of saying, can these two pieces of energy combine? And if they do in time, that could mean a big storm for us.
Yep, and they just don't phase.
And it's not going to happen. And I think we can say with a good amount of certainty today, it's just likely not going to happen.
There are those two pieces that Terry mentioned. Yep. As we go into the next couple of days, follow the circles, the northern energy and the main storm. They just don't combine those forces. That's when we get that combination, we get these big sort of blockbuster storms that hit the benchmark, the 40-70 line. And if they were to form, at least in this model, it's just too late for us to squeeze out any sort of significant snow, impactful snow. It would be phasing well into the Atlantic Ocean by the time that already passes out. I mentioned the benchmark, 70-40. All of the models, if you follow us in the summertime and we look at hurricane models, we have the spaghetti plots, right? Mm-hmm. Each model is run multiple times with a little bit of a different variable thrown into it. That's the same idea with this model forecast. Those L's are the center of the storm, the center of low pressure. All of them are below the benchmark. If we hit the benchmark, Terry, that's a storm that people remember.
Yeah, so typically that 40-70 benchmark is, in general, you want a storm track to come over or inside of that, closer to Boston to have any sort of real chance at a major winter storm. Right. And again, as of this writing, as of this taping, I just looked at the latest GFS model before we came in. I cannot find a model, at least a reasonable model, that's showing any sort of major storm now for the weekend. So I feel like it's Wednesday, we're getting awfully close, and maybe by this evening, another run or two from the Euro, from some other models, we might be able to just kind of wipe it clean.
Yeah.
Not to say we're not going to get any snow, and we'll cover that in a second, but certainly a major winter storm, I think, is very unlikely.
Put it to bed, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the European model. This was from the overnight, I believe, right? This is the 0Z?
This is the 6Z run.
6Z, okay. Yeah. So Saturday morning, as we wake up, the storm over Cape Hatteras. Remember, we want to hit that benchmark, which would be about 150 miles north of where the center is, and it just goes out to sea with nothing significant for us. Perhaps maybe a breezy day. This is the GFS model. Same idea, where it pops off the coast near Cape Hatteras. We'll watch the northern edge of this. Depending on the phasing of this with the energy that's involved, we could squeeze out some snowflakes and maybe some very minor accumulations. But this is not the major winter storm that maybe some people would hope for. I was just at a school in Westford. They're like crossing their fingers, doing snow dances. Even though it's a Saturday, they still want the snow to go sled riding and everything. But I think a lot of people been watching this closely may be disappointed if you were hoping for some good snow.
If anything, and if you've been following along, and we chatted on Monday, the GFS model, which is an American-based weather model, was really the one model that a lot of the snow lovers were kind of clinging on to, because it had been sort of the farthest north and west with the track and had some really epic runs in there, which gave New England a lot of snow. And this is still the closest to us, and it's still well below the benchmark. You can see that even that northern edge of any significant snow is just scraping by the islands, and I doubt that would mean anything. So, and again, the very latest run, I'm not even sure if graphic shows it, but the 12Z GFS run I just saw before we came out, also was a miss other than some light snow on Saturday. And I even looked at all of its perturbations. It runs 30 different, as you said, you tweak each model, each run a little bit. All 30, none of them, not one of the 30 had a significant snowstorm. So I think we're getting close to sort of saying bye-bye to this thing. Not to say, again, I do think there will be some light snow with that northern, so when we showed those two pieces, that northern branch still does come through New England, probably will dump a little bit of light snow here Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, but we're talking about a coating to an inch, as you'll see in a second.
Yeah, so this is a snowfall accumulation. This storm, I would say one of the bigger stories is perhaps bringing quite a bit of snow to areas that are absolutely not used to it, like Dallas, Texas. I have a lot of friends that live in that area, are meteorologists there. They're like kind of freaking out a little bit because just the infrastructure, again, is just not to what we would consider standard. And then as this stretches into parts of southeast Oklahoma and Arkansas, you're talking some good snowfall to places that just aren't prepared for it.
Yeah, and in fact, the Cotton Bowl is going on in Dallas, which is Ohio State and, geez, I'm forgetting their opponent now, Ohio State and Texas, is it maybe? Anyhow, I know some folks going down to the Cotton Bowl, which is played at Dallas Cowboys Stadium down there. And so this storm will be by them by then, but even if there's a couple inches of snow and a little bit of sleet and ice, Dallas could be very, very messy Thursday night into Friday morning. So
it is Texas.
It is Texas. Yeah. Okay.
Well,
but zooming up towards New England, so this is again computer generated, basically saying a coating to an inch.
Yeah.
Maybe a few spotty areas with around an inch of accumulation. But this is really just Saturday morning. That northern stream, really no juice to it, just some light snow going on Saturday morning. Really not a big deal or a big storm by any means. So why not end with a little bit of
love it.
Optimism. I know you said a lot of folks are looking forward to snow. Maybe some folks are saying, well, when do we get warm again?
Yeah, so we're only 60 days away from springing forward and 71 days away from the spring equinox. I will say that January 19th, historically, climatologically speaking, is the bottom of our temperature average here in Massachusetts. That's where, our temperatures continue to kind of fall a little bit, and then we'll start to see them rising after January 19th. The reason I remember that, it's one day after Eric and myself have our birthday. So remember that very closely.
As soon as when their birthdays hit, everything just
it starts to turn up. Yeah, absolutely. But a lot of spring things kind of right around the corner. And so to our point,
like we've got we're right around the corner.
I mean, 60 days from springing forward, 71 days from spring equinox. So yeah, I think that we have some winter yet to go, a lot of winter yet to go, but in the 7-day forecast, not a lot of winter storms to talk about beyond Saturday, and even then it's just some light coatings. Perhaps a few snowflakes on Thursday, Friday, start to moderate a little bit with less wind, and then into next week. I think, mid 30s for next week, and then we'll start to see temperatures maybe falling once again back into the 20s and low 30s.
If you're thinking about, what's our next chance with the Saturday storm kind of missing, what's our next chance? Is there anything else in the forecast as far as storms go? The answer is really no. The long range for next week, as you saw at the start of it, looks like another sort of quiet week governed by that big old low pressure north of us just funneling in cold and wind, and again, maybe another shot by midweek. Perhaps by the end of next week, there could be some kind of storminess, but it may actually be warming up by then, so that's a long ways out.
It's a long ways out, a lot of variables to look for with that, but in the meantime, it is cold outside. Wind chills are in the single digits and teens. It is chilly, so definitely stay warm throughout the day today. We'll have much more. Eric will have the latest forecast at 5 p.m. on WBZ, but for now, be safe, everyone.